You want to move on to the next one?
Yes.
Great. Let's tackle the individual tax. A lot of people are horrified by April 15th, and, that's justifiable. No one likes having to fill out all those big forms.
Not a big fan.
But let's get to the but part of it. When you talk about the lower-income people, they're paying, as you pointed out, usually around 10%. Cain's plan objectively says 9%, and that number is, in fact, smaller. But what it doesn't mention is that all the deductions that most people count on, the standard deduction, or if you own a home, the interest deduction for your mortgage, these are all set to go away. So the things that you have now that allow you to offset your income will actually disappear. And we're going to hear a really scary statistic in a minute that combines that problem with the third 9, and we'll get to it. But what it comes down to is that the people who are in the poverty zone, that $10,000 to $20,000 annual income, could end up paying 950% more tax than they do now under Herman Cain's plan.
Oof,
and that's
ouch.
that's pretty scary. That, by the way, is a statistic that comes from the Tax Policy Center. They're a business group of accountants, CPAs, that type of thing, tax lawyers, and their careful pick-apart of this says that people who are in that really unfortunate small zone could end up paying as much as 950% more tax than they are now.
That's not going to be survivable for those people.
No, not at all.
Well, that's sort of the problem. And, Herman Cain actually has had, maybe not him, but possibly some people on his staff, have been listening to what people are saying about how, oh my gosh, we've sort of figured out that this is going to club, the people who are making very little money over the head. And he said just yesterday, on Friday, that he was going to modify his plan so that people who are in the poverty range are going to owe no income tax whatsoever, which, again, also sounds great on the surface, but you have to keep in mind that according to the federal government standards for what counts as, you're talking about families of 4 earning $18,000 to $23,000 in that range, so they're already in incredibly dire straits, and there's another aspect of it, which is that third 9 that they still can't escape. And that's also going to have its own scary statistic associated with it. But who will not pay a bunch in tax the way you and I think of it is going to be rich people, because on top of everything else, as we talked about, dividend taxes will go away, but so will capital gains tax. So all those huge investment portfolios that they have are going to have no tax on them whatsoever. And then he's going to be eliminating the estate tax, which he likes to cast a sort of cloud over by calling it the death tax, but it's the estate tax. And he's going to eliminate that, which means that wealthy families, when someone passes away, are not going to have any tax taken out of their estate before it transfers to the next generation. And the estate tax was specifically created to reduce the concentration of wealth from a very small number of very rich families to bring it back into the control of the public domain so the economy could continue to function, because if money is not spent, nothing happens.
Right. We're seeing that. We're seeing that firsthand now. The money has been sucked out, and there's not enough to pass around to create jobs for everybody. So most definitely. And people throw this out, well, this is redistribution of wealth. It's socialism.
Oh, I love that. Please let me comment on that
Yes.
one. I beg you, let me comment on that.
Go for it. The floor is yours.
Redistribution of wealth is this term that right-wing people throw around like Satan has leapt out of heaven and is stabbing you repeatedly in the eye socket with a pitchfork. And that's sort of not the truth, because redistribution of wealth is already happening. It's just that right now it happens upward toward the rich. If you understand how the American banking system works, people become indebted. They owe back more than they borrowed. The interest goes to large banking institutions who actually borrow from larger banking institutions. This sort of pyramid that ends at the Federal Reserve, which is controlled by some very, very affluent, wealthy people. It's a private company. It's not actually part of the U.S. government.
Yes.
Okay?
We keep saying
and people don't know that. But it all funnels upward. So what happens is people who have credit cards, mortgages, whatever, they become indebted to banking institutions, and the banking institutions extract more from the borrower than they borrowed. That's what interest is. So this money is being sucked out of the lower and middle classes and funneled upward already. It's already a redistribution of wealth. It's the biggest redistribution system the world has ever seen. And the right wing is just angry that someone wants to reverse the flow. They don't have a problem with redistribution as long as they're the beneficiaries of it. They just don't want to have to buy 10 fewer Ferraris this year than they did the year before.
Yeah, and
Yes.
reduce their 3 martini lunches to just 2.
It really is mind-boggling. I mean, really, how many lobsters a day can you possibly eat?
Yeah, we call this process the reverse Robin Hood effect.
I actually wrote an article that said that being against changing the system so that people at the lower and middle classes receive money is basically like rooting for the sheriff of Nottingham in the Robin Hood story. Down with you, Robin! How dare you make something good happen to the people? What's wrong with you? It's sort of their theory. So we have to understand that redistribution is already happening. It's been happening for the entire lives of everybody who's currently listening to this show and everybody else in the country. It's just all going away from you. And there's nothing wrong with you saying, I'm tired of you stealing from my money, I'd like it back.
All right.
It's the